So greetings and welcome to another video. We're going to go on a little scouting trip and I'm going to show you what a persimmon tree looks like in the middle of summer. If you're like me, you're doing a little scouting, getting ready for the up and coming hunt season, it's all downhill from here if you bow hunt. Well, archery season is right on the horizon. I think South Florida has an early bow season on some private lands, and it opens down there before it opens up anywhere, and that's pretty cool. I hope maybe you live down in South Florida and you got a place to go bow hunting, go deer hunting with your bow. But yeah, well, let's talk about the persimmon tree. If you say the word deer candy or the phrase deer candy, you'll be referring to what some would call a persimmon tree, a wild persimmon tree. Now, I made a comment on a video that I had never seen a persimmon tree in the wild. Well, now I have, and I'm going to show it to you here in just a minute. But first, I got a few things I want to show you. This t-shirt, that's one of my old Updike Welding t-shirts. And it says a buck above on there. Updike Welding, a buck above. And what did that mean? It meant that I was $1 above being in the red. That means I was $1 in the black, $1. And of course it's got the deer on there, and it's got the same thing on the back, a great big old European mount, a skull, right, with antlers, and it said Updike Welding. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you can see it on the back or not. I'll turn around and let you see that. Yeah, those are my t-shirts. These we had about 100 of them made, and I gave them all away, except for this one. Actually, it was the last one. It's an extra large, and it fits on me like a pillowcase. But anyway, I got something here I want to show you. Here's another European mount. I don't know why they call them European. I didn't kill it in Europe. But it's a skull mount, right? He's a pretty cool looking buck. And I've had him up on top of my desk for a long time, just looking at him from a distance. And I want to put him here in the studio somehow. And I've got this piece of cypress, pecky cypress, that I found on Lake Harris during a drought. I brought it home and washed it up and got all the sand out of it, and it's a beautiful piece of wood. Nice and long. Look at that thing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it to the welding shop, and I'm going to make a mounting bracket that goes on the back. And then I'm going to attach my European mount, my deer skull. I killed that deer about 20 years ago and put his head in an ant bed. I got all the hide off of it, of course. Put it in an ant bed, and it's pretty gnarly. And I'm going to mount that right on there, and then I'm going to find a place to put it. Once it's good and secure, you just can't do it any old way. Any old way ain't going to work. I already tried the any old way. Whereas that's going to go on there like that. So, I'll keep you up to date on the progress of the European deer skull. Look at this thing. It's got this spike coming up out of the base here. And then his main beam, this is another spike. He's got two spikes, one here and one there. And then he's got a regular 3-point, which is kind of crazy looking. I shot this deer with my muzzleloader. Not too far from the Withlacoochee River. Anyway, that's that. So let's talk about deer, and we're going to do a series. I want to do a study. I want to continue my studies on becoming a better hunter, becoming a better naturalist, one who understands the workings in the world of the deer live in, the wilderness. I want to understand it better because I believe it'll make me a better hunter. And if I understand deer and their lifestyle, that will make me a better hunter too. So if you're interested in that, let's talk about it for a minute. Deer are ruminants. That means they have a 4-chambered stomach. And what that means to us as a hunter is a deer, you'll go out in the woods. Maybe you don't know this, but you go out in the woods early in the morning, maybe before daylight, and you get in your tree stand during the bow season, the first week of bow season, and you won't see a deer. You'll see tracks. You might see some rubs. You might even see a scrape or two. But you won't see no deer. How come I didn't see any deer? I see all the tracks. Why didn't I see any deer? Maybe it's because they feed at night or feed very early in the morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning. Maybe they spend 2 hours feeding and then bed down. And what happens is that 4-chamber stomach, the ruminant deer regurgitates its food and does something called chews the cud. And he'll chew that cud and re-swallow it. And then that food goes into the next chamber, where it is then the digestive system takes place. So a deer can actually bed down and continue to burp and regurgitate all of the food that it browsed before sunrise. This may take 4 or 5 hours. You're sitting there sweating in your stand. Why ain't I seen a deer? Well, the deer doesn't care about getting up and moving around. That's just the way it is. And yeah, I'm not telling you don't go hunting. It might happen in the middle of the day. It might happen in the evening. He might get up and move around early in the morning. He might be hungry. That might be when he's feeding. But as a general rule, I think maybe, especially summertime patterns, it's cooler in the evening, in the early morning. Maybe they just get in the habit of moving at that time of day. But yeah, that's a fact of life. We got to deal with it. We'll deal with it. I've been dealing with it. I've not quit hunting. I keep on hunting, and sooner or later, I'm going to get me a deer. But a second point I want to make, now we're going to go out and we're going to look at a persimmon tree. And that persimmon tree is a wild persimmon tree. I found it, and I'm going to show it to you because it kind of caught me by surprise. I had to look at the tree and study it for a minute, look at the fruit that was hanging on it, and then come in here on the computer and look it up, make sure it was a persimmon tree, because it really didn't look like a tree at all. It just looked like some kind of something just growing up in amongst everything else. Like I said, I made the claim that I'd never seen a persimmon tree because I expect it to be kind of standing out there like an orange tree, right? And obvious, but it's not obvious. They're very subtle. If you don't know what to look for, you might miss it. I'm going to share it with you. But there's one other point I want to make. That deer basically feed on 4 sources of food. The better we understand the food sources, and again, I made the comment on the other video that I hunt over food sources as a last option, okay? Unless you found something like a persimmon tree that is referred to as deer candy, all right? But that's not a slam dunk. Doesn't mean you're going to kill a deer just because you found a persimmon tree, and I'll tell you why. But let's first talk about the foods that deer eat. They eat what we call browse, okay? Where they just walk through a general area, nothing specific, and pick a little bit up here, pick a little bit there, a leaf here, a berry there, and just chip, 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 chip. They browse, right? While they're browsing, they'll find something called hard mass. Hard mass would be like maybe young bark on a tree or wood, new growth that's not soft. New growth that's hard, and they'll bite it. Now, if you've noticed, if you've ever skinned the head of a deer, that its upper jaw have no teeth. All the teeth are back here in the back, and it's the bottom jaw when it comes up that have the teeth. So the deer will bite down on it and strip it and leave the little branch intact. And that's a miracle. And then it allows it to grow back again. And that's something the hogs got them up top and bottom like humans do. But we don't go around eating, and deer can reach up high and hogs can't. That's pretty incredible. So browse is a natural way that deer feed. They just go around getting a little bit of this and getting a little bit of that. And as they're doing it, they'll get hard mass, which is acorns and nuts of all different kinds. Like I said, soft bark, soft limbs, or new growth that they can pick out. And then they'll get to soft mass. What's soft mass? Soft mass would be like a persimmon or a grape or mushrooms. They have wild grapes, mushrooms. What are some of the others? Oranges. That brings me to the next one. persimmons, oranges. There's a category there that's introduced by man. Now, it may be in the form of a feeder, where you might put corn in. It becomes a food source. Now, I would submit to you that that is an artificial food source. Okay? It alters deer behavior. And we're going to talk about that too. Okay? It alters deer behavior because we have that little timer on there. And we set it for that thing to go off at a particular time of day, and in an attempt to alter the behavior of deer. Now, we're not doing that on public land, but certainly doing it on private land. And it certainly is a form or a food source for deer, such as any kind of farm atmosphere. They're putting hay out for cows, and deer coming and feeding in that hay. Maybe that hay, it's got some seeds in it, it sprouts up, and the deer come out and they feed on that. Even though it comes up naturally, it's still produced by man. It's a different form of food source. It's introduced by man, and the deer take advantage of it, and it oftentimes alters their behavior. If it's out in the middle of a pasture with a shy deer, and we have a lot of shy deer in Florida. We got deer in Florida that never leave the cover, never get out into the open. Now, some of them do, but there are some that never do. They stay hidden at all times. But if they're hungry and they see food out there in that pasture, and they've been going out there at night and getting it, well, then that would alter their behavior. So food feeders and troughs and all of those kinds of things work all together. So that is my conclusion on the food sources and deer. It's my opinion that in places that don't get a lot of cold weather, like here in Central Florida, North Florida maybe a little bit less, but South Florida for sure, having year-round growth. That means plants are growing year-round because there's not a good hard frost. Sometimes we can't even see through the woods until there's a good hard frost and the leaves drop, and then you can see down through there, right? But we have year-round growth in some places where plant growth is growing all the time, and it's everywhere, and there's no real food source, especially on wild public land that we might be hunting, that doesn't offer us a persimmon tree, right, that we can go sit on, or a white oak tree that's dropping huge acorns, right, that the deer are coming to. The deer have learned that they're there, and they browse their way to it and show up there every evening 30 minutes before dark, right? So my point is that when you hear somebody say, well, I figured out where the bedding area is, I know where the food source is, now it's all a matter of time, I'm going to set up on them, I think I got the pieces of the puzzle figured out. When somebody says something like that, that's just deer hunting mumbo jumbo in my part. I'm not saying any of those things are true. I'm just saying it doesn't apply to me. It's deer hunting mumbo jumbo that I can ignore because it really doesn't apply to my hunting atmosphere, my hunting experience. My hunting experience is to hunt on trails. I know deer are going to come down, whether they're going to food or not. Food's everywhere. Okay, food is everywhere. You're going to see most of the deer when does start going into heat. Okay, and they start chasing and running around. You're going to find deer coming up and down those trails making their move. If you find a persimmon tree or a white oak tree that's dropping, you found something. Okay, deer are going to come to it. But maybe they won't. All right, so we're going to go out to the persimmon tree. We're going to look at it. I'm going to show it to you, and you'll get an idea of what you'll be looking at, because really and truthfully, to me, they're camouflaged. They're the hardest thing in the woods to see. But now I know that they are there, and that we can, if we can find them, maybe we can hunt over them when those persimmons start to drop. All right, we'll see y'all in a minute. So I was just moseying on by, and I have found myself what I believe to be a persimmon tree. There's a fruit there, fruit there. Here are the leaves, the broad leaves. Unbelievable. I no more got the words out of my mouth that I've never seen a persimmon tree in the wild. And here one is. Just little trunk, That trunk's no more than a 1-inch piece of pipe. And this thing is buried inside this cover. And here we have a persimmon tree. In almost mid-July. This would be mid-July. Now, if I understand correctly, the persimmon tree loses its leaves in the wintertime, and the fruit changes its color. Very interesting. It looks like there's another one right there, but I don't see any fruit on it. There appears to be one further back. I'm not going to walk through all of this. Appears to be. All right, so there you have it. That's my persimmon tree discovery. I know it's kind of limited, but here are some things that you might want to consider before you set up on a persimmon tree. That particular tree, I only saw just a few pieces of fruit. You've got to take in consideration the fact that squirrels, coons, possums, everything under the sun that would like to eat a piece of fruit, it's going to be after that persimmon, not to mention crows and birds of all kinds that'll pick at its fruit until there's nothing left. It's probably a pretty hot commodity. I'll continue to look, and I'll continue to expand my knowledge of such things, because to me it's just interesting. Again, I want to live in the deer's world. I want to experience the deer's life. I want to invest myself, right, in everything that the deer invests himself in, because it's going to make me a better hunter. It's going to make me more confident in the woods, and of course I can pass that knowledge on to you, my fellow hunters, and maybe you'll kill yourself a fine buck over a larger persimmon tree. I'm going to keep looking. Maybe I'll find me a big one now that I know what to look for. That thing was so hidden, you could walk by it 100 times and never know that it had fruit on it until it changed colors and they kind of stand out. Maybe we'll go back and we'll look at it in November. I know I'm going to go back and look at it in September, and we'll see what it looks like then. But yeah, it's a very interesting prospect to find a valuable, highly sought after food source that deer will come to at all hours of the day. And I was excited to find it, and I wanted to pass that on to you. If this content is something that you like, I want to invite you all to subscribe to the channel. There's more to come. Again, we are continuing. This will be the first of our series, how to become a better hunter, putting the odds in our favor. Of course, they're never all in our favor, but they're the little things that you can do to help increase your chances to be successful. And we're going to go through them one by one. Tonight was food sources, how deer process their food, and the persimmon tree, okay? And as I discover, I'll pass it on to you. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon. See you. Bye.